Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for being here today. We are having coffee with the mayor, and it is out here at Lake Havasu Municipal Airport. Thank you for joining us today. You're not going to have Jess, our city manager. He's at a conference today, so I will be here with our acting city manager, Jill Olson, who's our administrative services manager. So thank you for being here. And then we also have Mark Clark, our public works manager here, and he's going to give us a little introduction about the airport and the facility we're at today. So, Mark.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the airport. For those of you that might not have ever visited before, it's been out here since 1991. We have one of the longer runways in the state, and it's about 45,000 takeoff and landings here a year. We do not have commercial service, but again, there's a lot of things happening out here. We have 2 FBOs, a restaurant, so don't hesitate to visit the area. And when you're out here, and it's a beautiful view, as you can see over here, so it's a great venue. And again, welcome here and appreciate it very much. And also, we're celebrating this week. We have our airport supervisor, newly just hired, Damian Anderson back there. Come on, at least wave. And so, for those of you that are pilots or out here at the airport, he's the gentleman you can complain to. He's now on board, so we've given him a week so far. We're nice to him on our best behavior, but next week, just go ahead and tear into him or whatever. So.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And thank you for having us, and thank you for hosting us. In addition to Damon, our new airport supervisor, we have Paul Blazer in the back, who's the maintenance lead out here. Thank you, Paul, for being here. We appreciate it. What we wanted to do with this year through our coffee with the mayors is kind of take a tour of our city facilities and city assets. So last month, or 2 months ago, actually in December, for the very first one, we are at ASU. Although not a city facility, it still is important to what we do in the economic development for our community. We also will visit Mojave Community College throughout this year, and then we're going to go to different facilities of importance that, as taxpayers, that we all contribute to in some way. So it's just good to be able to get out there and see those different areas. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with medians. You all want to talk about medians, right? And road construction. I figured let's just hit it on the front end, and we can answer all the questions about that. But basically, the way the format's going to go out, I'll cover some hot topics that are going on in the city, things of general interest to everybody. And then we'll open it up for questions and answers of any topic, anything we covered today or anything that might be on your mind. Or any suggestions. So medians, let's talk about that real quick. So we have 2 different median projects going on. We have one going on from South Palo Verde to Industrial. That's the area in front of the Bahama Business Plaza, Car Toys, right in that general section. That project is nearing completion. A couple of interesting facts about that project and that median project is it actually is a project that was planned in 2011. Being funded with WACOG dollars, which is the Western Area Council of Government dollars, through federal monies. And so in all of that description, I didn't mention like Havasu City at all. And it's also being administered by ADOT. So it's a project that is happening within our city that we didn't have a whole lot of control over, and all of the planning happened in 2011. We go back a few years in 2011, we may remember that Hastings was open at that time, and all of the traffic that was heading north on Lake Havasu Avenue was generally turning either left into Hastings or right onto Papago and starting to go up into the neighborhoods in that area. That's why it all of a sudden kind of goes from 2 lanes and merges into 1 lane. It's kind of awkward right there. That is because of where the traffic was going in 2011, and also the city's right-of-ways. So we have limited right-of-way in this area that we couldn't expand it further, and so we had to do what we could to be able to get the traffic to be able to traverse through those areas. There are some things that we're working with some of the business owners and landowners in that area that we will help correct to make it a little bit easier to get through that area and meet the needs of the businesses and the users, all of us, that are using those areas. But we can't do anything until the project is signed off on by the federal government because it's their funding. So once that's done, we'll come back and make a couple of corrections. They will be limited in scope because, again, of the right-of-way access that we have in that particular area. The next one that we're working on right now, and is the most inconvenient for any of us going down in the downtown area, is from Mesquite to Swanson. That project, medians are going into it, but that's not really how it started all of this. This was a project where the asphalt was past its useful life and was needing to be replaced. And so during that process, that also has the oldest infrastructure, underground infrastructure that we have in our city. And so we had to go in there when we lifted up the asphalt. We were going to run new piping and new
water and sewer, making some changes with that, and actually that project, those 3 intersections went in 1991, so that's given us 27, 28 years of service, and it's just overdue. And the traffic issue, I also wear the hat of a traffic engineer, is just part of the growing pains. You know, when you think about 30 years ago, we were about half this size, half this traffic, and that's just part of the growing pains. And although we find people that just say, well, that's the only way I can get there, take my word for it. I've been in Havasu for 50 years. There's lots of ways to get where you need to go. Sometimes you just have to decide, okay, I'll go a little bit different way. And any of you who have visited Bullhead City know you can't make left-hand turns out of driveways onto Highway 95 up there because it just doesn't work. And that's some of the growing and changes that will occur as we have lots of winter visitors right now. Traffic is as busy as I've seen it in years.
Yeah, so we're doing the underground work at the same time. And while we're doing that, over the last 5 years, we've had 85 accidents in this area. And those are reported accidents. So that doesn't count fender benders or things that are just handled with the 2 vehicles or 3 vehicles that might be in that area. So for safety is why the medians are going in there. There's also been some discussion that the medallions in the center of those roadways that have a concrete stamp of the London Bridge, they are coming out because we obviously had to pull that out, but it is not real London Bridge stone. So we've heard some folks say, you know, I cannot believe that you're just pulling those out and discarding the stone from the London Bridge. Those are just formed concrete pads that are formed to look like a bridge. And so they have to come out because the rebar would not sustain it when we do it, but it is not London Bridge stone whatsoever. We do have, we're just going to be asphalting over there. So right now those bridge medallions are kind of a beautification in that area. We don't have that currently scoped to do any beautification in those intersections, but we are looking at those. And that is part of a larger streetscape program that as we do asphalt restoration throughout the community that we would install in some of our main corridors. So that will be a change to it. The project is going to be done by May. Of this year, so it's a fairly quick project. You wouldn't think it's quick, but if you have to drive to those intersections every day, but we are trying to ensure that we're communicating with citizens in that area and letting people know. Medians, I will remind, as Mark had mentioned, it is part of the growing pains, but from Smoke Tree down to Lake Havasu Avenue, that large median in front of the Safeway Plaza, the Ross Plaza, Kmart, that was not always there. And yet we still find our way to the grocery store, and we still find our way to the gym and the post office. And Lake Havasu City did not invent medians, but what we do want to do is protect our citizens and make sure that these roadways are very safe and able to traverse through those in a safe mode. We did work with the business owners in this area to talk about mitigation for loss of business and interruption during this time. And the timing that we're doing it now, although there's never a good time to do a road project, right now most of those business owners in that area preferred to do it now versus in the summertime, believe it or not. So, you know, a lot of folks have said, you know, we have all of our events going on and all of our winter visitors, and why in the world would we do a project during that time? And the business owners actually preferred this time by majority. A couple of other things in this area with the medians. One of the biggest concerns that I had when we were discussing this was that we have large rigs in Lake Havasu City. So we have, you know, either folks that are carrying 30, 40-foot boats trailering behind them, or they have big RVs with a car towed behind them. And so when you get into the bump outs for the left-hand turn lanes, you know, one rig could tie that whole thing up and block additional traffic from getting into those areas. They've assured us that with stoplight technology and synchronization that will not be an issue for us, that they will be able to get into the left-hand turn and be able to continue on their pathway, whether they're going onto the highway or up into the community some other way. So I'm sure there'll be some kinks with that, but we've really worked through a lot of those areas, and hopefully that'll be mitigated. So that's medians in a nutshell. So in May we'll be done with the project, and we'll be able to get through that road very safely. But I will forewarn us that Lake Havasu Avenue at one point in our lives, so maybe in 10 years, 20, 30, or 40, we'll have medians down the entire way from north to south. And that is just because there is no other alternative route than Highway 95 to be able to head north and south. And so the traffic is going to dissipate into these two roadways, and we need to make it safe for everyone to get along there. So eventually will happen in the future. We recently held our city council planning session. It was held last week, and this was the first opportunity that our newly elected city council was able to get together and talk about priorities, and also start with the budget discussions for this upcoming year. So as you may or may not know, but Jim Dolan was our new council member. The other council members were all re-elected, and then of course I was elected as mayor. So we had some changes on council and the structure, and so it was a good opportunity for us to review some of the policies that we've always done, and see if those still meet the needs of our growing community. And it also was an opportunity for us to give staff direction on some budget priorities. So the overall theme of that planning session was we're going to continue to bring projects and programs to completion that have already been started in subsequent years. So we have no new things that we're looking to do, but we want to bring things to completion. A couple of the things that came up during that conversation and also hit the media were ball fields was an area that was addressed, and what that might look like. The city several years ago did a study, a ball fields assessment study, on what our needs were within our community for parks and park programming and for play for our residents. And of that, the idea was born of a sports complex out at Sarah Park, which is a great idea, but it is very costly, we're finding. And so what we were able to do at the time is try and find ways to do the projects correctly, but be able to meet the needs that were most significant. So we started with pickleball. Pickleball is very popular, and we did that at Dick Samp. Their full needs are not met, but they do have municipal courts now at Dick Samp Park. We then went and did Cypress Park, which is a beautiful park up on by the Catholic Church over on like Oak and Daytona, Cypress, that area. That takes care of the immediate needs for our soccer community. And believe it or not, we have nearly 1,000 families that participate in our soccer programs in Lake Havasu City. So it's a real strong need. And then the third one was ball fields for softball, baseball, Little League, those types of things. And so we're trying to find a way to be able to bring that to our citizens in a very cost-effective way. And the original idea was to do it at Sarah Park, but we're finding, because of the topography at Sarah Park, the cost to grade and move all of the earthwork is very expensive. So we're looking total project in the 20 million range, which we don't have. $20 million. So we could do, so then we started looking at some alternatives of what we could do to still be able to bring ball fields and meet that need without spending that kind of money that we don't have. And so we talked through Sarah Park, and maybe we put one field there or two fields. Maybe that might be the answer, but there's other programs out at Sarah Park. So if you look at the master plan of Sarah Park, it does show that this a ball field complex or sports complex, whatever you might want to call that, is slated out there. But in order to do that, the Speedway would have to go away, and the RC airplane group would have to go away. The RC airplane group has invested of their own money, of their own club money, a few $100,000 on runway projects for their large RC planes. And then, of course, the Speedway is enjoyed by thousands of citizens every time they have an event out there. So that might not be the right solution either. So the cost and the inconvenience to those particular groups, outweigh or really push the city council to look at other options. What else could we do that we could still, make sure the needs of the community are met that are using ball fields and need ball fields, but also the recreational uses of our other citizens that use or enjoy the Speedway in the RC airplane area.
If you got rid of the Speedway, you'd have a riot.
Yeah, the Speedway is very popular.
Yes,
Yeah, it's very popular.
I love it.
And so, yes.
And I understand the scenario in reference to monetary situation.
Mm-hmm.
But what I can't really get my hands around is you went and spent all this money on a football field at the high school. Would that money not have been better spent instead of renovating the football field to indeed invest in more ballparks? Because I have the opportunity to work with Dr. Feder in the Little League down at Sarah Park. These kids need something to do. You spent that money to renovate a football field.
Yeah, so let me, I'll address that. So the question was, let me finish my comments on the topic that might answer it, and then I'll answer your specific question. The conversation right now that the City Council is having and came from the planning retreat is we have a ball field out on the island. And on the island, it's a ball field that currently cannot be used. It's near the area that they play youth football. It's not Pop Warner, but it was at one time Pop Warner, if you're familiar with that field. There's actually a baseball diamond on that area that just can't be used because it's not in good condition. So it's never used. We can't use it for ball field play. We can't use it really for practice or anything. But we have this land and we have this area that's flat. And that's good because that's what the big cost was out at Sarah Park. So we were able to build ball fields there that will help the Little League group and help collegiate ball, help senior ball. It'll be collegiate size if this is what we can get all together as a community. That's why we're having these conversations to see, kind of what the temperature is on everybody so that we can actually do something. Now, Ron had mentioned that millions was spent on ball field renovation at the high school, which that is the case. But that is, it's very, very important that we clear this up now and we understand what the political subdivisions are. So Lake Havasu City residents have the opportunity to elect their mayor and city council to manage the city and city operations and city budget. They also have that same opportunity to elect a school board. And the school board is the group that is responsible for the Lake Havasu Unified School District. It's very specific in state law what cities can do and what school districts can do, and we cannot overlap. We can work in combination and in concert with each other with memorandums of understanding and some collaboration, but we cannot, we don't do each other's jobs. So the ball field renovation, there was a bond and override initiative that the voters passed in 2016. This was done by the school district. It was, but the voters of Lake Havasu City passed that. The bond is for capital projects, ball field renovation, school improvements, carpeting, paint, roofs, whatever it is that they need. There's phone system technology. I mean, they detailed it out on what they were doing. And the override is for teacher salaries, operation and maintenance, those types of things. So the city was not involved in that project.
I understand. So the board has situated themselves in a position to expedite matters and situate the ball field the way it is and renovate it. Okay. You just said it, and you said it as an afterthought for the teachers who aren't paid properly, which is why we have other issues with students. And the reason I know this, and my owner is here with me, is we run a shuttle company, and we're the busiest company in town. And we take a lot of kids back and forth to school every day, and hear it from the teachers every day. So you reference them as an afterthought. I would think that they would be a priority.
I don't reference them as an afterthought. I reference them as they are under the school board. Right. I'm not elected as a school board.
Then has referenced them as an afterthought.
Yeah, well, we can talk after Ron about. I'm here to talk about city issues, and then we talk about how the city can help the schools in the school district. But I'm not. I don't have any ability to work or govern the school district policies or manage them. But after offline, we could talk about any specifics or questions you have on that. So the ball field. So that's kind of where the conversation is right now about one. How do we bring something to completion so we can ease the use of the fields and create an opportunity for our youth to have play and opportunity for additional fields and be able to get it done. So we have about $2.7 million in the budget, which would allow us to do the field at the island, and we also might be able to do some additional park improvements at Dick Samp. Dick Samp's master plan, if you have not been to that park, it's on the north side. The parking lot's a bit small. And a little bit crowded, but there is some additional land that the master plan identifies for additional parking, additional ball fields, and additional pickleball courts. So that's kind of like the full plan out at Dick Samp Park. But it will allow us to do more with our money, still meet the needs of the community that use the fields, and be able to have something done now versus the other option is we continue to go down the road with Sarah Park and what Sarah Park could look like. And then we save money each year, and after 10 years, we can maybe do the project as is imagined at Sarah Park. Now, it's also important to mention that just because we would put Sarah Park on hold for now, meet the immediate needs, does not mean in the future that Sarah Park couldn't one day be realized as the master plan identifies now. So we're having those conversations and seeing what makes the most sense, what is the most fiscally responsible thing, and still meets all of the needs of our community. Another thing that was discussed at the planning retreat was the irrigation and drainage district. And so what the IDD is, what it's generally referred to, but it's an irrigation and drainage district. You'll see on your property tax bill each year a fee for the IDD, and it is basically what the irrigation and drainage district is it was the first government for Lake Havasu City. So before Lake Havasu City incorporated in 1978, the IDD served as the government of our community. When the city was incorporated in '78, the IDD was to go away. It was supposed to dissolve at that time. However, at that time it had debt. It had debt associated to the initial sewer and water infrastructure that was installed in the city in the early days. So as long as it had debt, it had to stay in place, and a property tax would continue on until that debt was paid off. Past councils long ago would refinance that debt each opportunity that they had, because the IDD currently provides about $5.7 million to the budget for our water wastewater program. And so that basically is how we have clean water and how our dirty water goes away and how we manage all of the utilities within the system. So the $5.7 million needs to come from somewhere. It's used for the water operations and what we do. So either when the IDD is set to expire now in 2022, we can't refinance the debt. It's not necessary. It should dissolve as was originally intended. But we do need to have a conversation with our community about what we need to do to mitigate that $5.7 million. So there's a couple of options. One is we can go in front of the voters again and have a new district, a new water district of some sort, which basically would just keep everything neutral. So the taxes you pay now on your property taxes would remain. That $5.7 million would continue to go into the system to manage the system. A few benefits to that, and these are just real basic. I mean, this conversation we're starting today for 2 or 3 years down the road. So real basic. A couple of the benefits is it allows all landowners to contribute to the system. So not just people that have developed properties with buildings and houses and homes on it. It allows vacant land to pay as well. It also, with the new district, would widen and cover the entire water map, the water district of Lake Havasu City. There are currently some neighborhoods that are not on sewer but still get water and wastewater services from us. It would allow them to come on. There's a tax benefit that you can write off that on your taxes when you do it. The other option is we can just increase rates to the same level of the $5.7 million. So at the end of the day, we're all paying the same amount of money, regardless if we're doing it on taxes or we're doing it with our water bill each month. But that would replace those numbers. So there's a few different ways to look at it, but it is an important conversation that we start having about what way we want to do it and what direction we should go. In our discussions at the planning retreat last week, the city manager proposed to the council to do a rate study analysis so that we understand where the water rates are, what they look like, what they could look like in the future, taking into account all of our capital infrastructure that we would have to put into it. A lot of us still think the sewer system happened yesterday because we remember it. We remember voting for it in 2001, or not voting for it, but it did pass overwhelmingly. And we remember going through building it in phases. And so the last one went in, and was it 2010?
2012 or 13.
Yeah,
was the final
2012 or
project.
13. Yeah. So, but it started in 2002. So that's already, what, 12, 15 years ago? 15 years of constant use. We now have to take care of our pumps and take care of, most of the piping and all that stuff is in good condition, but the pumps and all the other mechanical features that go through a water and wastewater system have to be maintained and managed. So that will take a look at what all of the capital infrastructure needs would be based on useful life and make sure that we're protecting that asset that we have in front of us. So that's the conversation about the IDD and water rates and what that might look like. But again, this is something that's down the road, but we need to start getting citizen feedback and input and comments on now so that we are acting in the best interest of what your thoughts are. We also, outside now of the retreat, I'll talk about a couple of other things that are pretty exciting. One, Team Break is coming back. Last year we had a hiatus because of budget issues. We still don't have a very large budget for it, so I'm asking everyone to please support Team Break and support our recreation staff that's going to be reaching out to businesses and volunteers and users to donate and be a part of what Team Break is. The history of Team Break is back in the 90s when we had MTV here. We, as a community, had to find some alternative for our youth to do so they didn't get mixed in with the college crowd. And what was created was this amazing event that is very memorable for our teens, middle schoolers and high schoolers, to spend 3 days that kind of creates a time of their life, atmosphere in a carnival, fun, safe environment. And so after a hiatus of last year, which you know, at the time we thought other organizations were going to step up, and we had some partnerships that fell through. But now we're taking the lead again, and we're going to be able to bring that back. So it's exciting, and so if you get a call from somebody or you have an interest to volunteer or donate goods or services, please reach out to our folks over at the Aquatic Center and our Parks and Recreation team to be a part of that. We also, the Havasu Riviera project we've talked a lot about over the years. This is a project that's heading up towards the south end of town near the Water Safety Center. And it's as you make your way up, you'll see a new traffic light that has been installed. That's not operable right now, but it's been installed. And you'll see some roadway improvements that are coming into Highway 95 right in that area. This project at full build out is about a billion with a B, $1 billion in economic activity for Lake Havasu City and for our community. It is a public-private partnership. So I'll explain that a little bit. The public is Lake Havasu City, and our responsibilities are the roadway improvements, the traffic light, and the road into the new state park that's at the end of it on the water's edge. The next public is Arizona State Parks with their state park. They have leased it out to a concessionaire that is going to run it as a concession, but it will be the Riviera State Park right at the end on the water's edge with a marina, restaurant, boat launch facilities. So it brings to reality a mainland boat launch facility that residents have been talking about for over 2 decades. And then the public part is a development of land to the south of the roadway, which creates homes and recreation and those hotel sites, restaurants, those types of things. That'll be all done with private development, and at full completion will be about $1 billion in economic activity. Now, we've run into a couple of issues with the Riviera project. Namely, you may have read in the newspaper in the late fall that Governor Ducey fired the state parks director. And when he fired the state parks director, that then put their part of the public in jeopardy. He had hired or named an interim director who was just kind of there cleaning out the desks and the file boxes, and really wasn't going to make any solid decisions. But now the new state parks director has been named. He starts next week. He has Arizona experience, which is fantastic. He worked for Arizona Game and Fish for about 15 years before leaving the state of Arizona and running the Colorado state park system. And now will be returning to run the Arizona state park system. So now that he's coming into office as an appointment from the governor, we're confident we'll be able to work through some of these contract areas that seem to have come up since the former director was fired by the governor. But that has now delayed the project. What was supposed to have opened now, this month in February, is probably looking more like summertime, and that's if everything goes well. So, but it is still a viable project. We are committed to it. Obviously, for that type of economic activity, it's very important for our community, and we'll continue to do everything that we can to bring that project to completion and get that done. So that answers the question ahead of time of when you're going to be driving on Highway 95 heading north or south and you see the stoplight with bags over it that's not operable for a few months. Like, well, what are they doing? That's what we're doing, is we're waiting for our partners on the public side, being Arizona State Parks, to finish up their contractual obligations so that we can move forward and get all of the pieces together. So we also are in the process of doing a transit study, and we have Vinny, our NPO director, if you would like to share a few words, and you could
Stay close to you.
yeah, stay
Next to you.
and sorry for those people watching on TV, we do have this really awkward sun that's coming in, and I apologize to our guests here today. That's why they're wearing sunglasses if you
That's right.
are seeing them. So I'm going to stand next to you, Vinny, just so you can I can pick you up on the microphone.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. My name is Vinny Gallegos. I'm the Executive Director of the Lake Havasu Metropolitan Planning Organization. Long story short, transportation planner in the community. Very grateful to be here with you. We finished a bicycle pedestrian plan a few months ago, and right after that, we decided with our executive board, who Cal is our chairman of our board, along with Councilman Lane and Donna McCoy and Supervisor Johnson from Mojave County, the priority was set to go ahead and begin working on a transit plan for the community. We know that if you've been here a while, that transit has gone through an evolution over the years. Currently you're served by Havasu Mobility, which is a system that's much more demand response for our elderly, disabled, and those in need in the community. But we also recognize that there are funds available to this area, like many areas throughout the United States, that currently are being underutilized, and the city is looking at how to best utilize those funds. With all that said, what's exciting is we're doing a transit plan. And this transit plan is going to really reflect the needs of the community, the wants of the community, balanced with what the community is truly willing to support. So what's exciting about this is I have a survey here today, and this really starts off a 12-month study of the community. And it starts with you. And I have this physical in hand survey along with those from my office. Jeanette's in the back, and she has a stack of the surveys. So I have this in a couple different ways because we want to make this as convenient as possible. We all know we get busy, we lose papers. So you can do this online. You can do this with a piece of paper. We can sit down with you and help you fill it out. Basically though, this survey, we just finished it yesterday. We have a consultant on board that's helping us for the next 12 months. The name of that consultant is Jacob's engineering firm, and they're going to be in the community for the next 12 months. Myself as a staff member, along with them, along with our executive board, will be at various meetings continuously talking about this, because we want the study again to reflect the community. We want it to reflect what you want, what you desire, and what the funding's willing to support. So it's always that fine balance. So we know there's many serving the community as stakeholders. We know there's the residents. We know there's our elected representatives. So we really want as many survey responses as possible. So you all get to start the survey today. So we're going to have it here for you. On the sheet, you'll see where you can either fill it out, mail it back. You can hand it to us today. You can give it to the mayor, to myself, to anybody that you see will get back to us. Or more easily, you can get online and you could fill it out online. I would also ask if you have neighbors that you want to share this with, if you're going to be attending a meeting, you can invite us to meetings, and I hope to hit as many as we can. We're a pretty small staff of 2, so it's kind of hard to get out to everything. Our consultant, though, has also asked us for what are the major events in the community. So they're going to be setting up a booth, hopefully at Winterfest and a couple other big events. Again, to get the word out, we want to gather information. We want to know, some more of the history. They're looking at the history of what used to serve a Havasu community, what aspects of that worked, what didn't work, what do we have today that we want to keep. Long story short, 12 months from now, the MPO, my organization, wants to be able to turn over to the city a plan that is implementable, that is ready to go, that is something that the city can take and say, okay, this is realistic, this reflects our community, this reflects the funding available, this is something that we'll be able to do in phases, and this also is an opportunity to, again, take in additional funds we're not utilizing. So that's really important. that this area is eligible for funds that we can receive through this plan. So with that said, I will have some of these after the meeting for you. We have some pens in hand, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
What's the website?
What's the website?
What's the website? It's
There we
on
go.
here. And probably the easiest way is for me to give this to you than to probably say it out loud, and you can take it with you.
I was just thinking if you said it out loud,
Oh,
then
sure.
it's on camera for anyone watching later on.
You bet. It's actually under the city website, so part of that helps you.
Okay.
So it's lhcaz.gov. So it's going to be under the main city website, and then there's going to be a link on there for the transit plan. So on the front page, I believe we just got it up, I think just yesterday, there's a link for transit plan. When you click on that, you're going to have a one page giving you some general information as to what I said today. You're going to see a timeline, and then you're going to see a link to the survey. Jeanette?
So the page that we're talking about is part of the brand new website that's going to be implemented in 2 weeks. So it is so you are going to have to make sure you backslash transit-plan, or you can go to www.lhmpo.org, and on our front page it says, hey, see what's coming up on the transit plan. There's a big box that links right back to the page.
So in case you didn't hear that, lhmpo.gov is our website.
.org.
Sorry, .org, thank you. You always get confused with the dots and what follows that. So please go to either of those websites, and again, it's also on the sheet of paper. So each of you, we've made plenty of copies. I'll hand one to you, and that way you can have it for you. But is there any other questions or comments about this?
Are they looking at a fixed rate, fixed system like they had before?
The exciting part about today is right now we're looking at every possible thing. And what's going to happen over the next 12 months will kind of be like going into a filter, if you will. All ideas are on the table as of today. And then over the next couple months, we're going to start chipping away and hearing your feedback and saying, you know what, a fixed route, we would love it, yes and no. We start looking at the dollars, we start looking at the funds that the city may have available. So then we start calculating everything, and as time goes on, again, you're going to start getting that specifically answered. So I would say right now, sky's the limit, and then we'll start chipping away at those ideas. Other questions or comments?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What's more feasible? Is that a situation that we can address? In other words, with all of your different plans for transit, which you didn't even expand on, but it's on the sheet, is it conducive to assume that something's more feasible than not?
Absolutely.
And how would we know that?
We're going to know that, first of all, we're going to do a couple different ways. Number one, the survey. We're going to be meeting with stakeholders. We're going to be meeting with focus groups. We're going to be meeting with all the different people to see exactly, first of all, the feasibility of what the community wants, what they're willing to support, and what the funds are. I mean, it's a balance between the two things. That's ultimately what makes it feasible, is what the community wants and what the community is willing to support.
And obviously the cost.
Yes, absolutely.
Look at the past history of the fixed route system.
Yeah, and the
That's one
history
thing
is going to be a very big part of that. You know, we've definitely experienced quite a bit in this community and very, very aware of that. We want to repeat the things of history that we believe will be productive and good, and hopefully we've learned from that.
And let me just add one other comment. What's interesting is the technology has changed over the last 10 years, and also what's available in Lake Havasu City. So some of the interesting things that are occurring other places are where the transit system that the city or local government manages includes private partnerships and connections, and it's a lot more technology driven than bus systems that have been in place for 60, 70, 80 years. That technology change is really what's exciting about where we go in the future, because we've kind of implemented a fixed route that was what old technology and old processes were, and now with Uber and Lyft and private things and coordination and computer systems, the sky's the limit related to that coordination.
And let me follow up with what Mark said too, no pun intended, not to reinvent the wheel, but many of you are a part of other communities, have been from other communities. This is your opportunity to share with us, again, the successes of those communities or something that you know, because we are looking at that. We know that people have done this. We know in many ways we're not absolutely unique in leading this, So if something is out there that's similar to our Havasu community that reflects our values, needs, wants, our budgets, please by all means share that. And I know that many of you have those experiences from those other communities that you've lived in or you know about. We would be happy to look at that and be innovative, as Mark just said, to really look at what is working out there. We want something that'll absolutely work. This is not us sitting in a closed room thinking this is what's best for the community. This is the community really speaking up and shaping its own transit system.
Thank you, Vinny.
You're
I appreciate
welcome. Absolutely. And I also have business cards, so if anyone has questions afterwards, I can be happy to talk with you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, so if you're currently a transit user, know someone that's a transit user, ever think you'll be a transit user, or will never be a transit user, please fill out this survey. As Mark and Vinny indicated, technology's changing. In about 4 or 5 years, we're going to be driving on roads without a driver in the driver's seat. So we need to be able to ensure that we're getting our citizens around and we have a mobile community, but we also are balancing the needs of the taxpayers and that we're using technology. So I have one more comment, and then I'm going to make some introductions, and then I'm going to open it up to you to answer any questions. So we do have Governor Ducey will be joining us in Lake Havasu City on Monday, February 11th. He's being hosted by the Lake Havasu Area Chamber of Commerce. It's a luncheon. So there is a charge for it, but it's open to the public. You can contact the Chamber of Commerce for tickets. He will be giving the State of the State address here in Lake Havasu City, and I will also be giving a State of the City address in Lake Havasu City as well. So again, it's Monday, February 11th. Starts at 11 a.m. And you can get your tickets from the Chamber of Commerce here in Lake Havasu. It's at London Bridge Resort.
I think the deadline to get tickets is the 6th.
The deadline's
And
the 6th?
I believe it's the 6th. Lisa was talking about this morning. It starts at 11. Once it starts, they will let no one in after that. The doors will be locked.
Yeah, so
If you get your tickets, you need to be there by 10:45. Don't be late because they will not let you in. Because once the governor starts speaking,
yeah, there's security protocols
yes.
if when the governor is around. So, but if you're interested, contact the chamber. They'll give you all the details of that. Now with some introductions, Senator Sonny Borelli, who just took a bite, sorry, is joining us. So welcome home, Senator. He's a road warrior. Hitting the road late last night so he could join us this morning down back home from Phoenix doing our state business for us. So welcome, Senator. We also have Penny Pugh representing Paul Gosar, Congressman Paul Gosar. Thank you, Penny, for being here. She's also a road warrior, so she's all over the road, so thank you for having the Congressman's interest here. We have Vice Mayor David Lane is here. Thank you, Vice Mayor. We have Council Member Jenny Koch. Thank you for being here. And I believe that's our electeds that are here today. So I now will open it up to any questions that anyone has. Yes, sir.
My question is about Rotary Park. Being that this is a tourist destination, we have a severe problem with restrooms for our visitors. You go from the London Bridge Resort smoke trade bathroom all the way into the London Bridge Tourist Center. There's no restrooms, and a lot of our younger people and our seniors you see kind of struggling to get from one bathroom to the other.
Yes.
You have that area where you took out the radio control park many years ago. From what my understanding was going to be a police substation. They haven't done anything with it. How about putting a restroom in there? You can augment the cost by renting spaces out to store outrigger canoes or kayaks there for our visitors. They don't have a place to store them. And it's just a need that we need.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you for your question. I'm going to repeat it just so the folks at home can hear. So we're talking about Rotary Park, and the question is the bathrooms, and we have a lack of bathroom facilities that come from the London Bridge area, so the base of the bridge in through the park and along the walkway, and we don't have enough capacity in this area. So I have some, I'm a huge champion of bathrooms. The other council members are probably smiling because I'm always talking about bathrooms in this area. So a couple of things that we did do is as you're going down in between the London Bridge and Rotary Park, there is now on the the east side of the channel, there is a porta potty bathroom station. Not ideal, but that was my compromise. I won. That was a win for me, believe it or not. Eventually, we'll hopefully get some permanent bathrooms in that area for all of the people that use it. I'm glad that you recognize it as well. Sometimes when I was having those discussions, I thought I was the only one that was down in this area. But there are some cost concerns. So obviously everything comes back to money and economics. Lift stations and to get the water flow into that area is very costly. And so that's why it hasn't turned into a permanent solution there on the East Bank. But the good news is that the council, the current city council, just adopted a measure a couple of months ago that are renovating all of the bathrooms in this area. So Rotary Park's going to get a new bathroom facility. So to augment the facilities we already have, we'll be renovating and bringing them up to capacity, the rest of the facilities in the park. And then also on the London Bridge Beach Park side, those bathrooms will be added capacity and be renovated as well. So we're making good strides in that area. And thank you for your question. And I'm glad that you started me out easy, that I actually had an answer that we're doing something about it today already. So thanks for starting me easy. Any other questions or comments? Sir.
Havasu Riviera Marina launch and restaurant, what's the projected date for that to come in and start being utilized?
Yeah, so the question is the Havasu Riviera State Park, the launch facility, and the restaurant that will be associated with it. What is that timeline? Because of some of the things I mentioned earlier with the state parks and some of the contractual obligations and disputes that are happening in that area, we're probably about a year out, to be honest with you. Hopefully it'll be sooner. I know the goal was before the boating season, but with our new state parks director just getting into office on Monday, and then even if they can work through some things, once they start the construction to go vertical on the buildings, it'll be fall before it could possibly open. Now the ramps have already been laid. They're in and underwater, so it's just the rest of the groundwork. So maybe the launch facility opens sooner, but I know that they're all very interested to get that open as quickly as possible, especially the concessionaire and the private development.
We started a rumor it's going to be an Olive Garden.
Yeah. No, we don't know what restaurant it's going to be yet, and no rumor starting here. You have follow-up question?
I know in the past when building projects in the city were being started, that they had penalties for not meeting trigger dates or timelines. Is that being done with Havasu Riviera?
Yeah, so the follow-up question was sometimes in contracts there's trigger dates, and if they don't meet those dates that there's penalties of some sort. You know, the way that it should work, but it's not the way it does work, is you have the local government, you have the county government, you have the state government, and you have the federal government. We should reverse it, have the local government, have the state the county, so because they're obviously closest to the people, they're the boss, the people. But the state tells us what to do, and they're the ones that are holding up and delaying it, so there will be no penalties. Yeah. But great question. Yes, ma'am. And then I'll go to Chuck next.
The Riviera project. I'm wondering, are any of those slips that are going to be there, will they be? Do you just rent them for the day? Can they be purchased by residents? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so that's the question is about the marina that's going to be out at the Riviera State Park, and how do you get access to those docks? I'm just speculating now from what I've heard. That's going to be a state park run by a concessionaire, but it's their intention from public meetings that I've attended that they will be available for monthly rentals. They'll be long-term monthly rentals. They'll be available for day use, and then they would also be available for overnight use. Obviously with a different fee structure for each one, but they would be accessible for all types of users. There's also been discussions that there will be a dry base marina as well. So for folks that don't want their boat to stay near the water, but don't want it actually physically in the water, that they would have constant air level service where they would take the boat out, put it in dry storage. You would then call up before you want to arrive and say, I'll be there Friday afternoon at 3. They would have already launched the boat for you, sitting in a dock, so you can just get into your boat and go. Sounds pretty nice, right? One day, if only I could have that type of service. But yeah, so they're looking to cover everybody. So, Chuck, you had a question?
Yeah, you never mentioned anything about the center that they're putting in on the lower 200 acres.
Yeah, great question.
You also didn't mention the center dividers when are they gonna do them at Kiowa and 95?
Okay, so two questions that Chuck has. One is the Environmental Learning Center, which is a part of this Riviera project. It actually was discussed at the retreat as well. What the Environmental Learning Center is that it's a facility that would be built that would basically become the water experts of the Colorado River. So right now there is no one expert group. There's 20 plus agencies that have some sort of authority, thoughts, and ability to manage, restrict, jurisdict the lake and the lake bed. And so we want to have one area that is the expert for that. So they would be monitoring the ecology of the water, the levels of the water, the biology of the water, the topography of the water, all of the things that have to do with this. We have over 23 million people that rely on Colorado River water in the Southwest for drinking water. And so we need somebody to be that authority, and why not it be like Havasu City and be in our own backyard. This was a project that was championed during the Vision 2020 process. That was the award-winning program that created the Vision 2020 Revitalization Economic Development Plan. And we've been putting things together. We won $2 million. Of that, $500,000 went to this project. So far of that $500,000, $250,000 has been spent with a group that was studying the feasibility. Like, is this even something, you know, it's great to talk about it, but is it really something that's viable? Is it something that's needed? Is it a good resource? And they've come back and gave a report to the council at the retreat last week that yes, it is viable, it is something that's needed, and there was even some expansions on it. So it would include some classroom space that potentially ASU could use. It would include office space that some of the other governmental agencies that have jurisdiction on the lake would be able to use in their research of water. And it also would provide a spot for Lake Havasu City. We have a division within our community that's all they do is monitor the water and the water levels, well, I'm losing.
Oh, sure. We have at the Mulberry treatment plant, we have a lab that does the testing not only for Lake Havasu City's water and wastewater quality, but actually does it for some other communities as a charge too. But that's information that we have to do as a normal part of our providing safe water and drinking water and wastewater stuff. And that location is actually used to be a factory building at the Mulberry treatment plant, and it's been now 40 years old. And so as we're talking about this opportunity, there's an opportunity to modernize that facility, just take advantage of some donated equipment. I think ASU has donated $1 million worth of equipment that's just basically sitting there waiting for somebody to start using it for these things. So it brings all of that stuff together.
Yes. So there's lots of pieces to the Environmental Learning Center. Now the next $250,000 that's still remaining in the ABC America's Best Communities winnings is going to now go to find partners. So how is this facility paid for? Who builds it? How do the sustaining operating costs get covered? All of those pieces so that we can come back to council and the citizens and see what our next steps are. So that's kind of where we're at with the Environmental Learning Center. The location would be on, as you go into the Riviera project, there is land that is set aside for public use that the city has a lease on or a patent on from the BLM, but it has to stay open to the public, and this would be a public use where it would also be a learning center where we could bring children in, and it would show how wastewater works, how we treat water. It really would be a full functioning lab and classroom environment, and also potentially a tourism destination into the future. But right now the stage we're at is how does it get paid for, and how do we sustain the operating cost? And that's all being paid for by monies that were won in the competition. So that's Environmental Learning Center. And then Chuck's second question was what's going on at the intersection of Kiowa and Highway 95 about medians and safety in that area. Some people may be surprised to learn that that area is the most dangerous roadway in Lake Havasu City. There are a number of safety measures that are being discussed, actually in partnership with the Metropolitan Planning Organization that Vinny runs, ADOT, and Lake Havasu City. The idea is to put a median from Highway 95 in front of the Circle K and kind of the Starbucks area to restrict left-hand turn lanes out of there, because that's one of the largest causes of accidents in that area, and also adding an additional traffic light in that area. So Those projects are all in are moving forward, but our partners are ADOT, and that's Arizona Department of Transportation, and they are the lead agency for the state highway. So we are making progress on it, but I don't have a completion date for you yet, Chuck, but it is still a top priority for us. A follow-up question, Chuck?
One more question.
Yes.
Maybe Sonny can answer this since he's here. About that $34 per car fee, and what is the deal on them wanting to raise the gas tax?
All right, so I will, Sonny has stepped away for a second, but we'll grab him and we'll answer your question in a few minutes. Shannon.
Back to the Olive Garden rumor. The new buildings that were just built in the city complex.
And the what?
The city complex.
Yes.
The Cryway. There's a Verizon. Do you know what's going in next door?
Yeah, so the question was, do we know what's, there's a new shopping or strip center that is in the Kiowa, Hobby Lobby, Ace Hardware, Staples shopping center. There's now a Verizon store, cell phone store that's in there, and there's a few additional bays. There are not any defined tenants that I know of yet when I talked to the folks that were building it.
One has a drive-through on the side.
Yeah.
Yes.
And somebody photoshopped Chick-fil-A on it.
Oh yeah, no.
And I got really excited and then got really disappointed quickly.
Yeah, so no rumors starting of what's coming and what's not. And I will say everything you read on the internet is not true. So please don't start that. I don't want us to be the originator of false false rumors. Senator Borelli, if you want to make your way up, and I'll stand next to you for the mic to answer a question, but we'll answer your question first.
Okay, so to follow up on that, are there any new businesses coming to Lake Havasu City?
Yeah, so the question is, are there any new businesses that are coming to Lake Havasu City, which is a great question. One that I always like to address with, your city council does not have the ability to say what business can and cannot come to Lake Havasu City. So we're not out there saying, oh yeah, no, we don't want that restaurant, or yeah, that's a great shopping center. Yeah, no, don't want that. That's not our job. We do not do that. That's a fallacy that people think we get to do. People can do business in Lake Havasu City, and our arms are open to everybody that wants to do business in Lake Havasu City that is in a legal nature of business, that is in the proper zoned area. So your city council's influence is zoning, and making sure that the zoning is available and open to allow certain types of industry and or businesses and neighborhoods to coexist and develop our community in the best way. So with that being said, we do sometimes have some inside information on anything that is coming to Lake Havasu City, but right now there isn't anything of significance to report. There is, you might have seen some development on the corner of Swanson and Lake Havasu Avenue. It was an old gas station that was repurposed several times. The Starbucks that's located in the Sunset Plaza Mall is actually going to be relocating into that area. So that's the construction on that area. And that will be a full service Starbucks drive-through similar to the one on the north end of town. There's also some development going on up in the neighborhood on Jamaica and McCulloch in that area. And people it's a really small building, and that's going to be a drive-through coffee store or a shop as well. So that'll be exciting for the folks that live up in that area. And we are working on a couple of other job creators right now. You might have read in the newspaper about the mall and some of the repurposing out at the mall. But those are still in very early stages and working through, so we'll report those at a future Coffee with the Mayor. I'll now stand next to Senator Borelli so he can be picked up on the microphone to answer Chuck's question about the vehicle fee and fuel tax. What was the question?
Yeah, what was the question? Because I was in the back.
Chuck's.
So yes,
it's
Chuck.
About the deal with the $34 per vehicle registration. How did they come up with that instead of the $18? And some about they want to raise the gas tax up. Somebody said 43 cents.
Okay, well, there's two parts there. Once again, we didn't have a representative that didn't listen to somebody that had been there a while. They gave an unelected bureaucrat the authority to raise a fee, call it whatever you want, it's still a tax. So that's why it went from $18, that was sold to everybody that voted on it. By the way, I voted no on that bill, okay, so just to clarify things. But anyway, so they gave an unelected bureaucrat the ability to do that, and exactly what happened, they raised it to $32. Now, Senator Ugenti Rita introduced a bill in the Senate It passed through the committee to repeal that law. So, and then there's also other alternative bills that are out there to try to bring some parity. Representative Campbell, I think, introduced a bill to just cap it at $18. So that's in the House of Representatives. And of course, Representative Campbell also introduced a bill to, I think, raise a gasoline tax of 43 cents or something like that. That's in the House. If that survives the House, I will really be surprised. But I'm pretty confident when it comes over to the Senate, it's most likely going to be DOA, dead on arrival. Because I don't think anybody wants to support that, except for maybe the Democrats, because they want to raise taxes on everything. But they won't tell you that. You know, the Phoenix papers won't tell you that. They vote against all kinds of tax cuts. They want to continually raise taxes, and of course the media runs cover for them. So we'll see how that works, which makes no sense to me because that's literally a tax on the poor. But so I'm confident that that bill is not going to. If it survives the House, I'll really be surprised, but not too surprised because the margin is there's 31 Republicans and 29 Democrats. So we have a very slim margin. We can only lose one, and things can go haywire over in the House. But in the Senate, we have 17 Republicans and 13 Democrats. So we're pretty strong. We're stronger over in the House.
Is it true that it was reported that if they tried to repeal that $30 fee, that Governor Ducey said he would veto it?
Well, that was what the newspaper reported, but then again, sometimes I don't even believe my own press releases. So.
Even when you say that.
Thank you, Senator.
Yes, but Representative Leo Biasucci has a bill to kind of bring some parity on the license plates because the electric vehicles and the alternative vehicles, they get a huge break on their license tags. And of course gas vehicles don't. So he's trying to bring some parity to that to kind of repeal that little bit of a tax relief or tax break and try to bring some parity to that. So that because they're still using the roads even though they're not buying gas, they need to contribute. So that's one of the things that I'm supporting for Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Was that already answered?
Answer perfect. Yes.
Mayor, I got one more question. I'll leave you alone.
Okay.
It has to do with construction. I drive these roads in Havasu all the time, all day long. We have a real problem with landscapers and construction people dropping their debris on the roads. Has there been any thought into making tarp the loads like they do in so many other states? I mean, tires are expensive, the balances on car are expensive, just repairs in general are expensive. And pompons, drywall with screws sticking through. I spent $1,200 on tires last year because of road debris.
Okay. Interesting.
It's a simple fix if the city would.
And you can add windshields to that.
Windshields also.
Yeah. So the question was, what is the city doing about covering loads? And there are some contractors and some landscaping crews that don't maybe tarp their load, and debris falls out of their trucks and gets onto the roadways, and then gets we drive over it. It then causes expensive repairs to our vehicles. We already have ordinances on that to cover loads. We can look at strengthening them. And we have worked with some service groups, especially Shannon had mentioned the roadway from basically North Palo Verde to right out in this area to go out to the landfill area. That area it's getting cleaner. Hopefully residents have noticed over the last several months that area is much cleaner than it used to be. We're continuing to have a concerted effort on that. We're also looking to use labor from the jails and the prisons to help keep that area up, and that's some of the stuff we've done. We've gotten some commitment from ADOT on that particular roadway to continue to maintain it, but we'll look at seeing what we can do to strengthen that and encourage covering people's loads to protect vehicles. So, yeah, great question. Gary.
Yeah, after the 2007 RUDAC group was here, the volunteer group started that memorial walkway along the channel, and it's been a pretty popular thing. The city donated or paid for the labor, the brick mason labor, did a great job, and has continued a lot of with the blank bricks. That memorial walkway project is getting reinvigorated now with the Marine Corps League. Will the city continue that agreement to do the labor for that memorial walkway?
Yeah, so the question was the memorial walkway down by the London Bridge. It basically starts at the base of the bridge and heads north, and it's in the easement area, about a 5-foot easement width stretch, heading over to the tribal boat ferry in that area. And back in 2007, a group of organized citizens, after the RUDAT study, came together to build the Memorial Walkway, and they're reinvigorating at this time, and they're looking to have city support to continue with their efforts. And yes, the city is willing to be a partner in that and continue to support that effort. What that specifically looks like, we'll hash out the details, but yeah, we're definitely supportive of that project. So, yes.
I got an interesting one we could bring up. Everybody is talking about, and nobody has the real answer. The traffic lights now that are being put up, we've got that new pole with that mechanism on the top. So I've heard everything from watches for spaceships to cameras for writing tickets. What are those for? Let's clarify it so everybody can hear what they're actually for.
All right. So the question is these technologies on traffic lights, and what are all of those bells and whistles for, and are they tracking us, and are they for rocket ships, I think, and some other things. The great thing is we have our traffic engineer here as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
Well, there's actually two things on our traffic signals. The smaller black one is actually the emergency opticom emitter for fire and police, or for fire in Lake Havasu City, that allows them to give them a preferential route on when their sirens are on. The larger looking thing is actually a camera for detection only in our traffic signal cabinets. What it does is the computer takes that image that it has of the road. We're actually able to draw figures on there that represent traffic loops. So instead of used to having traffic loops in the ground, you now do all that through computers. There are communities that then link that information to a traffic signal headquarters. Lake Havasu City does not do that, has no intention of going down that road. Obviously, we don't have enough traffic that would warrant those kinds of choices. But for now, those cameras are just in there acting as a camera for the computer system. They don't even actually record any of the things. So we occasionally get phone calls from people saying, "Hey, I was involved in an accident. And I saw there was cameras there. I'd like to." No, we don't have any of that information. It's just real-time substituting technology for that old loop, and it's a much more effective solution. The cameras have developed over the years to the point where we used to have issues with glare. The cameras would glare out, but the technology has changed tremendously. So that is what those are for.
I don't think I'm the first person to ask that question.
No, I get asked that question all the time. And also, I also get a question about, occasionally you'll see in town little black squares that are put down. Those are traffic counters. They actually record speeds and things like that. But I will get accused of all kinds of nefarious plots of those are doing all kinds of things. So just leave them alone. They're just counting.
All right, we'll do Ron, Sandy, and then we'll come back up. So Ron first.
Getting back to the transportation scenario, I've been privileged to work with children for a long time. My concern is this. The way the children are getting to school, whether it be a shuttle or more so the shuttle companies that are in town, my concern is, factually, I know that a lot of these companies are not insured to take children to school, and they are. I've heard it, I've seen it, and I know it. There's got to be a way in which you guys can ensure that these companies are not only reputable, but honest enough to have the right insurance and protect the children. The children in this town who depend on us to get to school because of the lack of the bus system are conducive towards God only knows what with uninsured vehicles and uninsured drivers. There's got to be a way to compensate for these people.
Sure. Yeah, so the question is about mostly specific to shuttle services that are giving children rides to school, and do they have the proper insurance, and are they properly licensed and experienced to do that? So great question. I don't have an answer for it, but we'll definitely look into what our ordinances say and what we can do as a city to help ensure the safety of our children. Obviously, it's of utmost importance that we protect all of our citizens. So I'll take a look at it, and we'll see what we can do. But thanks for bringing it up.
I brought this up once to the other gentleman who was mayor, who could barely see over that table, but be that as it may, at least you will allow the opportunity to investigate and then act on what should and shouldn't be on the roads today. Because if it's not for the kids, I mean, let's be honest, with the society we're living in today, and the discrepancies we're dealing with, and the uncertainty we're dealing with, we have to make sure the children are taken care of.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it. I appreciate you bringing it up. Sandy?
I was curious about a couple of 501c3s in Havasu, namely the interagency. Rumor close it down, do we convict these people? Or
Sure.
do they just go free? And I also heard rumor with the same thing at the Humane Society, so the police department has taken over. So I'd like to know, I mean, incarceration in the nation is a problem right now, a crisis, and Arizona contributes more to that incarceration. Another fact circled around Mojave County. So I just want to know when these directors of all these operations are illegally doing business and deep sixing the agencies that can help some of the younger or not so fortunate citizens. Interagency decades it was there.
Sure.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, so the question was, what's the city's involvement with 501c3s and to ensure that they're engaging in good, sound business practices so they can continue to offer the services or goods that they do for the community. Namely, one of the comments that she had mentioned was the social service agency, interagency, and to their demise when they close their doors, and do we prosecute people for that? We prosecute anyone that breaks the law, and that's basically how we handle that. We will investigate anything that is brought to us that has clear evidence, and the police department will do a thorough investigation for any of those types of things. It's not against the law to go out of business or to be bankrupt or to be a bad manager. Not against the law, and that is the case of interagency. Was that there was just some overreaching. There was no embezzlement that was found, but they report to a board of directors. When the city learned that some of their business practices might not be sound, we severed our relationship with them and encouraged their board of directors to look into matters, and they did the best they could. I am happy to report that many of the services that interagency handled are now being handled by the Havasu Community Health Foundation, and we appreciate their leadership in stepping up to help our community. Namely, the food bank is located on Kiowa now and is in full operation, serving the needs of our most vulnerable citizens, and we continue to find different areas. Another one was an accusation about the Humane Society and why is the city now handling animal control. The reason that that's happening is that the city had a contract with the Humane Society to handle animal control, but their costs were higher than if we did it ourselves. And so we do it ourselves, which saves the taxpayers money, and that's why we brought it in-house. It had nothing to do with business practices of their organization, but it was less expensive for the taxpayers of Lake Havasu City for us to manage that program and do animal control through our police department. And our police department's done a fantastic job with that. We still do have a relationship with the Humane Society because they are our boarding agency. So if there's a lost or stray dog or cat, or any animal truly, we'll find it and take it over to this boarding facility, in which we have to have a contract, which currently they're able to provide those services at a less expensive rate than if we provided them ourselves in the city. So that's what our relationship is with the Humane Society. But again, the city does not manage 501c3s. Those are nonprofit boards, and a board of directors manages those agencies. But like Havasu City, if they have a relationship, either financially or contractually with any of those agencies, we manage to the terms of that contract to ensure what we contracted them to do is being done. So we'll take a couple more questions, and then I'll end with some more fun facts, and we'll talk about our next event. Yes, sir.
Mine is kind of twofold. Water, I guess maybe Senator Borelli can talk to what was just sent to the governor.
Yes.
I guess I'm a little bit confused. We know we draw water off the river, but do we have any of our own wells? And how many, or what's the capacity? Or?
Lake Havasu City pulls its water out of wells that happen to be just right next to the lake, but due to the federal regulations and all the complexity of the legal requirements of the Colorado River, even though we're drawing from wells, it's all considered Colorado River water. So the city has an allocation of Colorado River water, which is currently about 26,000 acre feet, which is plenty for what we have now. the concerns that the community has related to the drought contingency plan and all those things is in a year of shortage, which we have approaching our like 30th year of drought and some things like that, as well as a combination of the original allocations for the Colorado River. It was over allocated when they divvied up the water. It was a good year, and so they divvied up those waters. So all of those complexities really create an interesting situation, but we get our water from wells. It's part of the allocation. We are lucky enough to have a Dr. Doyle Wilson that works for Lake Havasu City that's kind of an expert in this whole area, and as well as previously city attorney Maureen George was a water expert. And so we've positioned ourselves in great place. Actually, over the last 15 or 20 years, we purchased additional water rights. We used to only have about 15 or 16,000 acre feet. So we're in pretty good shape. We were interested in making sure that the drought contingency plan get passed, because one of the things that Dr. Wilson talks about is no one wins when nobody knows what's going on. So that was important to have all those discussions. And again, it's a very complex, you mentioned agencies. Metropolitan Water District out of LA, Central Arizona Project. I mean, when you talk about the water history of this area, it's amazing. But we're in pretty good shape right now, as long as everybody can kind of come to an agreement for how we deal with these droughts and everything else.
Yeah. Did you have anything to add, Senator, about the drought contingency plan?
The DCP got signed last night.
There you go. Yeah, so the DCP is what you hear a lot about, which is the drought contingency plan. That's what was in the newspaper this morning. The important part about what that was not just done during the legislative process over the last 30 days. There was a committee outside of that that's been working on it for 5 years on it. So it finally came together. Last night, the 31st of January, was the deadline. If we did not pass it, and when I say we, would be the state legislature and get the governor's signature, the federal government would have told us what to do. But as Mr. Clark had mentioned, Lake Havasu City is in a good spot from a water perspective. A lot of people have the question about growth, and we see all this building going on, but we don't, then we read in the newspaper about drought contingency plans and how do we have enough water, and it's a true concern. But Lake Havasu City has enough water allocations water and land, which is good, for 96,000 people. And if we were to hit the shortage, the very first shortage that is in the plan, Lake Havasu City residents would not feel it at all, because we don't even use water to that capacity. Although being good neighbors and good stewards of the resource, we would absolutely, as a community, come together. So, did you have anything else to add, Senator?
Well, just one more.
Oh,
couple more. But, the water. Oh, go ahead.
Let me address that. And it's good to keep the federal government on edge on that deadline. So, it's good to keep them on edge. That way they waited to do something.
Is that your strategy?
Right, and then now they can put their feet back up on the desk.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a couple of follow-up questions?
The excess water, we just allow that to go down the river.
Actually, by law, the Central Arizona Project ends up taking any of Arizona's excess allocations and ships it there, and then they actually do storage with it. And it's a huge,
very
complex question. Matter of fact, I'm trying to get Dr. Doyle to maybe give a speech, because he's retiring fairly soon, and he just gave a great speech at ASU a couple weeks ago about the lake mapping. But yeah, that would be a great final topic for him to update everybody in the council and have a public meeting, because it's a huge, complex. I mean, we got the federal government working on states, quasi-governmental agencies, the Metropolitan Water District, and CAP. I mean, it's amazing. So
yeah, it's very complex.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got those people. Just one more quick thing. Along Highway 95, I'm a real believer in first impressions, and we have some tacky areas on 95. And so can something happen there? I know it's state control, but that doesn't mean that we can't be involved.
Sure. So the question is about Highway 95 and the beautification and improvement of that area. It was mentioned that that is controlled by ADOT, which is Arizona Department of Transportation. So we have to get their permission. Just this last year, they did give us permission and gravel to be able to beautify a couple of other areas in that area, and we continue to fight hard for that. So we're working towards it. Yes. Yes.
I just wanted to give a quick thank you to the city for the speed limit sign, your Calvary Association, the Academy School. Many people are very happy about that, and because the traffic gets pretty fast going down there. One question is from us, to some neighbors and friends of mine, and also Sonia and I thought about, is Is it only during school hours? Because the sign does not say that.
No. Yeah, so the question was, it was a thank you, which we appreciated, thank you. It was a thank you for changing the speed limit on South McCulloch near Calvary School, which that school area, it's on the very south end of town. It's on McCulloch Boulevard, which is a busy road, 35 miles an hour generally, and the school happens to be located right at a turn, and it's kind of a blind turn if you don't notice it. And Calvary has now over 450 students that attend that school. So through Mark and his department, they did a traffic study, and it did warrant reducing that speed to 25 miles an hour. But it is 25 miles an hour all of the time, not just during school hours. So it is 25 miles an hour in that area. It's not a speed trap. It's to protect our children and make the area safe.
I just wonder, is it because it's not a public school? Is that why?
No, it doesn't warrant.
Yeah, no, Arizona has some unique laws, and one of the things you'll find out is every state has different laws related to both traffic and school zones. So in Arizona, to have a school speed limit, which is a school safety zone, 15-mile-an-hour speed limit, you actually have to have the crosswalk. The crosswalk brings with it all of those discussions, and there's a criteria about the crosswalk and how many users are there. And at Calvary, for example, there's really no children crossing the street there. They're just all being picked up. So we couldn't go and shouldn't go the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit zone, because obviously then that inconveniences the traveling public, and through years that's worked out well. So as a part of the compromise, we've recognized that there are areas where the 35 Boulevard speed limit is just not appropriate, and that's where the 25 goes in. But that also brings with it the 25 being there all the time. I would point out that it can't be a speed trap because we have plenty of signs that say school zone, school area, slow down, 25 miles an hour. So if you get trapped, then you're just not paying attention.
Before you get there, which people are way.
Yeah, 35.
It's 35. They might be going 45. It's 35. Yeah. Slow down, Mickey. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Sir, did you have a question? Did you have a question? No.
Oh, you're looking at me?
No. Yes.
Just Jason from the BLM. Hi, everybody. Again, we just want to say thank you for the continued outreach with the transition leadership with the city. We've continued to see good working structure in place, and the partnership is good. We're here for the community, and we're here for the next 2 weeks, pending any additional government issues. And we're happy to be of service. So please come by. We'll show you around, and we'll answer your questions as far as public lands. And we're really excited for off-road community to be stepping up right now. There's a lot of trail improvement going on in the community. There's a lot of stuff going on with the side-by-side club and with the Jeep Club regarding the Peace Trail, which is a really big topic in the community right now. And we're working very hard to make that come to a reality. So see y'all out on the trails, and please stop by. I have a card if anybody wants to talk BLM stuff after.
Thank you.
And let me just emphasize for people that might be new to the community, Lake Havasu City has benefited tremendously from the relationship with BLM. We have Sarah Park as a part of that process. That's BLM land that is a huge asset. We have the Havasu 280, so sometimes in the discussion about timing of the process, we get lost in the fact that that's 280 acres of recreational land right down by the lake that has a phenomenal ability to be for the future. And then also we even have a site that was a hot topic years ago, the MCC site up in the far northeast side of the community too. So our relationship with BLM has been a great asset, and we work well with both of the other state agencies too. That's an important part of why Lake Havasu City is working as well as it is.
Definitely. Yeah, so thank you, Jason, from BLM. We appreciate it. Sir, yes. And I'll take one more question after yours. Yes. Yes.
I didn't get all that crosswalk stuff, and my question is about crosswalks. I just heard yesterday jaywalking is a $200 fine. Is that correct?
I'm going to turn it over to traffic.
In Arizona, in most communities, there are no jaywalking laws. If you want to have a jaywalking law in a city, then you have to have a city ordinance. So Lake Havasu City does not currently have a jaywalking ordinance. Arizona is you can cross anywhere you want to, but the driver has the right-of-way, not the pedestrian, in everywhere except crosswalk. So it's a little bit of a different mentality in Arizona. But I will tell you that it's effective related to the pedestrian is the one that owns his or her safety. The reality of it is if you're relying on that white line on the crosswalk to protect you from that moving car, it will not save you. So please make eye contact and be safe.
All right, well, oh yes.
How do we go about trying to get a crosswalk?
You can.
Swanson Avenue.
Well, and I do studies there all the time and have been doing over the last 25 years, and the locations have not ever met warrants, and I'm a advocate for not putting in a crosswalk until it meets warrants, because what happens is you paint the lines down there, they're not used to a lot of pedestrians being there, and then we have a pedestrian crash. So the reality of it is I'll be happy to take a look at the study of the individual location, but until that volume gets there, it really is actually less safe for the pedestrian to cross at the crosswalk. Now, the other part of this whole discussion is Arizona has an interesting law that at every intersection of a roadway and a roadway, that is, whether it's painted or not, called an unmarked crosswalk, and so you have all the rights and responsibilities as a pedestrian to cross there. Just again, it's all about your own pedestrian safety, so make eye contact, do your thing, but as you can see, we go to a lot of effort to try and make things safer with signs, and drivers aren't paying attention. They're at their cell phones, they're speeding, and so please exercise caution. But you can give me a call, and I'll be happy to take a look at that.
Shannon?
Cal, another question. Just wanted to get some information out to the people that are here. My name is Shannon Lay. I'm the recruiter from Mojave Community College here in Lake Havasu City. We are having 2 ribbon cuttings this month on the 21st. One is for our nursing department. We recently just purchased, we call them Sims. They're simulated mannequins for the nursing students to work on that can simulate, they can program the sim to simulate pneumonia or any other illness. These Sims sweat, bleed, everything. They were probably around $70,000 a piece. So we've really improved our nursing department. And so we're having a ribbon cutting on the 21st for that at 5 p.m. We also recently have put in a vet center in our library for our veteran students to be able to gather and communicate with each other and just have some camaraderie. So that ribbon cutting is going to be at 5:30. So the public is invited. We'd love to show you our campus. If you've never been to our campus, we'd love you to come and see it. Our library is always open to the public. So, if you want to do some reading, work on the computer, we do have that available to you guys. So I just wanted you guys to know that.
Thank you. All right, so this is going to conclude the Coffee with Mayor for today, but we have a couple of additional things I want to talk about real fast. We have, our next one is March 1st. It's the first Friday of every month. It'll be at Fire Station number 2 on Kiowa. So Fire Station number 2 on Kiowa. Come join us at 8:30 Friday, February 1st. After the Coffee with the Mayor, March 1st. Sorry, did I say February 1st? Oh, yeah, we would have been late. Yeah, March 1st. It'll be after Coffee with the Mayor, the fire chief and some of our firefighters will give us a tour of the facility, so you can check that out. We also have on the table a yellow, or is this yellow? Yellow sheet. Goldenrod sheet. It has some suggestions on renaming the Coffee with the Mayor. I am the mayor that does not drink coffee, and so we'll still do it at 8:30, but just see if it's open to a new name. If anyone that's watching this at home, please feel free to call my office or send me an email with any additional suggestions. You can fill this out and give it to Jerry, my assistant here, or feel free to give it to me this morning. I have a couple of fun facts that we're going to end with. I always like to end with fun stuff that's happening in Lake Havasu City, just general knowledge that means nothing, but it's kind of fun to know. So there are approximately 45,000 takeoff and landings at the airport each year. That averages 125 takeoff and landings each day here at this airport that we're here today. Crazy, right? Let's see. Lake Havasu City had the first biological sand filter water system in the country, constructed in 2004. Using technology from Europe. This was done to prevent the introduction of manganese into the water distribution system and eventually the taps of our citizens and also the toilets. Manganese is a non-toxic, but the clothes and toilet staining and all of the other stuff, no good. So if you've lived here back in the 90s, early 2000s, sometimes you turn on the water and it would be brown water. Completely safe, but brown water. I'm in the hotel business. People don't like brown water when they come to a hotel. So this system prevented that, which was quite amazing. Another thing that is for the most patriotic city in America, our public works team, led by Mark and his staff, raises and lowers 53 flags for high wind advisories or special occasions. And this does not include the flags that are handled by the police department. So we have 53 sites on our grounds in the city that we take care of. The London Bridge, the weight restriction is 80,000 pounds, which is the standard legal limit. It can handle single loads of up to 200,000 pounds if the vehicles are set up with enough wheels and axles and drive the appropriate speed in the center of it. And then what is the total span and length of the bridge? It's 941 feet. So we talked a little bit about animal control today. A lost animal report. We have 2 full-time animal control officers. We had 709 lost animal reports in the last year. So.
Find a lost rattlesnake, take it to them.
Yeah. Let's see. So far this fiscal year, our planning division has approved 5 design reviews for storage unit projects, including an additional 196 storage units. Would you believe that we're still needing more storage units within our community? Our engineering department is currently administering the design and construction of $34 million worth of projects as part of our annual CIP. And let's see. We'll finish with Lake Havasu City changed its standard roadway stripe width from 4 inches to 6 inches last year to increase its visibility, especially at night. So not all the streets have been changed yet, but as we change them, we're going from 4 inches to 6 inches, which when you're driving down the road, you're like, what's that mean? But it's always good to have visible road dividers. So as always, thank you for the opportunity to serve you as your mayor. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you next month at the fire station. Have a great day.